This is Kate Toon, and you're listening to Studio Success Formula.
Welcome to the Studio Success Formula Podcast, the business school for dance studio owners. And now for your host, Clint Salter.
Hello, dance studio owners. It's Clint Salter here from Studio Success Formula, and thanks for joining us on today's podcast. Today, I'm super pumped to be bringing you a guest who is going to take us down to the ground level, explain exactly what SEO is. Search engine optimization is what gets us to the top of Google. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than that, and that's why I've got our guest on today, Kate Toon, to help us understand how this SEO thing works. So welcome, Kate.
Hi, Clint. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. So Kate is an award-winning SEO copywriter and SEO consultant and has worked with many small business owners but also large companies to produce great content while educating them about the do's and don'ts when it comes to SEO. So Kate, I mentioned the term SEO. It's quite a trendy one and people talk about it all the time, but can you break it down for us? What exactly is SEO?
Well, as you said, SEO stands for search engine optimization. So really it's the process of trying to influence the natural search, so not the paid ads you see on Google, but the natural results, so that your website pages rank well for your chosen keywords. So I type in copywriter and my site comes up top. That's the dream, yeah?
Yes.
And sometimes it's called inbound marketing these days, but essentially it's that. It's not tricking the search engines, but it's trying to play by the search engines' rules and giving your site the best chance of appearing at the top of the rankings.
Yeah, so for an example, for a dance studio owner, they might be a dance studio in Manhattan or Sydney, for instance. And so when you type in Dance Studio Manhattan or Dance Studio Sydney, you want your studio to come up in those first few entries on Google.
That's exactly it. And it's all about trying to think about those phrases and what phrases are going to get you to the top, you know, so phrases that aren't too competitive. So, you know, Dance Studio Sydney would be quite a super competitive term. There'd be lots of people after that.
They certainly are.
Yeah. So it's about trying to think about clever ways and different keywords that you can use to try and get yourself to the top.
Great, and that kind of leads me on to my next question that I want to ask you, because many studio owners come to us and talk about keywords and how they're being told to have 10 to 15 keywords that relate to their studio that they need to sprinkle throughout their site and throughout their blog. I'd love to know your thoughts around keywords.
Yeah, keywords, I mean, they're a tricky one. There's an argument to say that there's common sense. You know, if you want to rank for Dance Studio Sydney, well, that's the keyword you should go for. But the truth is it can be really hard with these more competitive phrases to kind of have any chance. And the truth is really if you're not ranking on the first page or really in the first 5 results, then you're not going to get found. People are more likely to search again than they are to go to the second or third pages of the results or even scroll to the bottom of the page. So that's why, yeah, keywords are really important. And I have a little process that I take my clients through, which is, you know, first off, do your brainstorming, you know, come up with all the phrases you can think of, and then go to some sites, and I can pass these to you, Clint, at the end, like Ubersuggest or WordPot, because they help you think of things a little bit more outside the box, you know, phrases you might not quite have thought of. You can then put those keywords through Google AdWords and see if anyone's actually searching for them, because there's no point ranking fabulously for Dance Studio North Shore if no one's actually typing that keyword into Google. You'll rank number 1, but you'll get no traffic from it.
Exactly.
And then it's also a case, and this is where it gets a bit more tricky, of seeing what your competitors are doing. Because if the biggest competitor you're up against for the phrase you've chosen is huge, has thousands of links pointing to them, giant site, you'll probably really struggle to rank above them. So you can't look at your own site in isolation. You have to look at it in the context of other sites. And not wanting to waffle on, but the most important thing, I think, for smaller businesses is to think about what they call the long tail. You might have heard that phrase before, long tail keyword.
Certainly have, yeah.
Yeah, and really that's trying to discover niche search terms that are less competitive. And the example I always use is Amazon.com. They make most of their money from the obscure titles rather than a few blockbuster books. So although the specialized books only sell a few copies each, there are so many of them that it adds up to big results. So you might think 10 tap lessons for kids under 4 is a really bizarre phrase. And yes, you might only get 1 or 2 people searching that a month, but if you're the only one competing for it, you're the one that will rank.
Yeah, which means at the end of that, you'll rank and they'll be coming to your website or they'll be calling you and inquiring about your classes. And so, you know, for other studios, it can be words exactly like jazz classes in Sydney, jazz classes in Brooklyn. So
I think it's about looking at, you know, what you do, so dance classes, where you do it, so the location, who it's for, so are they for kids, are they for teenagers, for girls, and then types, you know, jazz, tap, modern jazz, whatever it may, hip-hop, you know, and trying to work a really good combination of those together. So you don't go for the obvious, you try and go for something a bit more unusual.
Yeah. That's excellent advice. And so you mentioned in AdWords, so they just basically go to the keyword planner in their AdWords, and they can see there the search volumes that are happening locally for those terms.
And that, you know, that's paid search, so it's not 100% accurate, but it does give you a good indication, you know. And if things really aren't getting very many local searches, you know, if it's 1 or 2, it's still worth going for, because the other thing to think about is these people are further down the sales funnel. So somebody types in, I'll use me as an example again, but someone who types in copywriter, well, they could want to be a copywriter, they could want to learn about copywriting, you know, but they might not necessarily want to hire a copywriter. So that phrase, even though I rank number 1 for that on Google, it's actually not that useful to me. The phrase that gets me more conversions and more traffic is, you know, website copywriter for financial services in Sydney. Very specific, not many people competing for it, but that person knows exactly what they want. And if my site comes up first, I could be the one they go for.
Exactly. So you're really zooming in on, you know, for studio owners, who is your, which we talk about in the Studio Success Formula program, is who is your ideal student avatar? Who is your ideal parent? And then putting around it, you know, where you are, the styles of dance you offer, so that you are getting really targeted, ideal people who are making contact with you and that are finding you. Super important.
Exactly. It all comes back down to that customer avatar, who you're talking to. You know, you have to target people, not Google. You know, it's always people first, Google second.
I love that. People first, Google second. That's a good quote for you, Kate.
Thank you.
So, you know, we've talked a little bit about Google. You know, everyone wants to be at the top of Google. So what are a few things that Google takes into account to say, okay, we'll put you up the top?
Well, look, search engines use hundreds of factors to decide their rankings. They send out little spiders to crawl your site, come back with the results, and then make decisions based on that. The unfortunate thing is that each engine has its own algorithm, so Google's is different to Yahoo, is different to Bing. But Google is the one we kind of focus on here in Australia because it has about 90% audience share here. So if you fix your site for Google, it'll be good for the other ones. But really, you know, as I said, 200 or so different factors they reckon these days. And even as so-called experts, we don't know. Nobody knows. It's all about trial and error. Even the Google team are split up into lots of different groups so that no one person completely understands how the algorithm works, because obviously they could make millions. And obviously the algorithm is changing all the time. You may have heard of the recent updates. There's one called Panda, and one called Penguin, and one called Hummingbird. And each of these algorithm kind of changes the game rules again. So it's quite difficult. But the truth of the matter is it comes down to 3 essential things. Number 1, making sure your site is technically sound, it's crawlable, it has no bugs, it works. Number 2, making sure your content is relevant, interesting, and contains your keywords. And number 3, getting backlinks and links to your site from legitimate sources. Not buying links, not getting links from dodgy directories, but just building links slowly. If you do those 3 things, technology, content, links, you should be okay.
Perfect. And so if we just look a little bit closer at those 3 things, how would someone know if their website is, you know, technically up for it? You know, that there's no issues technically on the site. What would you suggest to those people? And keep in mind that a lot of studio owners, yes, a lot of them do get their sites built by, you know, web developers and designers. Some do it themselves though as well.
Yeah, well, I think if you choose a solid platform like WordPress, which I'm sure many of your users use, you're already putting yourself on a good footing. Choosing a good developer that's being recommended to you is good as well, because then you would hope that they would understand the SEO ins and outs. But even then, it's not a guarantee. I built my site myself and, I've learned by trial and error what works and what doesn't. And there's actually a resource on my site, which I'd be happy to give out to your people, which is an SEO checklist, which essentially what I say to my clients to do is send this back to your developer and make them sign in blood on the bottom, because it basically is a tick-by-tick list of things that they need to make sure they've done so that the site is technically sound. And if you've built the site yourself, you can still use the checklist. Most of the things on there are easily fixable by someone with a basic knowledge of WordPress. And the few slightly more tricky ones, then yes, you might need to pay a couple of $100s to get a developer to fix them, but it's worth it in the long run. Because once you fixed it once, you never have to fix it again.
Yeah, exactly. And that'd be great, Kate. We can put a link to that in our show notes as well.
Yeah, cool.
Fantastic. Now, look, I know this is a complicated question, but how can we increase our chances of getting higher up the ranks in Google? And so you mentioned those 3 really important things that you need. But are there any kind of must-haves, or have you seen any mistakes that people make and they think they're doing the right thing, but they're actually not?
Yeah, I think, there are several issues that come up again and again when I run my audits on sites to see why they're failing. It can be things like they've accidentally blocked the Google bot. I know that sounds really silly, but if you've built the site yourself, it's quite sometimes easy to make a little mistake like that. Or that they've not really taken the time with the content. They've shoved up some words, not very many words on a page, and it's not really focused on anything in particular. They haven't really said, this is my page about jazz dance classes for under 5s. It's all a bit general and not very focused. And then another of the biggest issues I find is that, if you have ever used an SEO company or paid for links, you can have a really bad, what's called a link profile. And Google really frowns these days upon sites that have links from them from dodgy sites. It looks where the links are coming from. So that can be another issue. But if you've built the site yourself and you've, not try to do any naughty things, essentially, you'll probably be okay. And then really it's a case of just keeping on, adding content, sharing that content, trying to get links, listing on directories, like good ones, like Yellow Pages. And I always say, SEO is for life. It's not just for Christmas. It is an ongoing thing as part of your overall marketing strategy. It's not something you can do and then stop doing.
Exactly. And it was funny, I was having a conversation with one of our dance studio owner clients yesterday, and she said to me, so Clint, when do I stop doing this SEO? And I said, oh no, it never stops.
Yeah, it's just like any form of marketing, you'd never stop at, even, one of the biggest brands in the world, Coca-Cola, spends more in advertising than any other brand out there, I think. Even though you'd think, why would they need to? Everyone knows Coca-Cola. But you have to keep, your brand top of mind. And, SEO is about getting found, but it's also about your brand becoming known and being visible. So, yeah, unfortunately, you have to keep trying.
That's right. Keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
So you've worked with some brilliant companies, and you've done copywriting campaigns for them, Audi, Coca-Cola, just to name a few. So what advice would you give to our studio owners about how to structure their blog? Or a lot of them have a latest news page where they post what's happening in their studio. What are your tips around really utilizing that content to the best of its ability so that they can get found by Google and hopefully push them up in those page rankings?
Well, again, another resource that you can offer out to your people is I've written an SEO-friendly blog template. So literally it's a paint-by-numbers Word template that they can type a blog into. And that will tick off all the SEO requirements, so things like writing a good title, making sure the content's the right length, all that kind of thing. But essentially, when it comes to blogs, I think there's a few things to remember. Number one, yes, they are important for SEO, but really the people are going to be reading these. So it's really, really important to make sure that they're interesting, engaging, and entertaining for someone to read, because that's why they'll get shared on Facebook and Twitter. That's why people will comment. That's why people will remember you and your studio. Google is all very well and good, but it's people who are coming. So most importantly, make sure that they're interesting for the people who are going to read them. Don't just shove a blog up because you think, I should do a blog. If you've got nothing to say nothing. And then the other thing I would say is, every blog doesn't need to be a 1,000 word, opinion piece. It can be some photos. It can be a video that you found on another website that you want to embed into yours. You can share other people's infographics as long as you credit them. It can be a list of tips. Don't necessarily think it all needs to be words, that you can use lots of different types of media in your blog, and then it mixes it up and, again, makes it more entertaining for the users.
Yeah, that's excellent. Now, look, a lot of our members of Studio Success Formula say, and I see it all the time, Clint, I'm not a very good writer. They're a studio owner, they're a dance teacher, and so they sit down to write a blog or even to write what's been happening in the studio, and they can sit there for hours pondering over, is this good enough? Does it make sense? And so what tips would you give to those people that are struggling a little bit to get the words out on paper?
I guess, maybe go to some of the bigger brands out there, or even companies that supply yoga products like Lululemon and things like that, or dance products. See what they're blogging about and see if you can get some inspiration from those guys. But look, everybody's got a voice. Everybody's got something to say. And, I'm sure that these dance owners, company owners, business owners, they must have some kind of gravitas if they've been able to set up their own business. That's a big thing, and not everybody does that. So, it is about having that confidence and realizing that the way that you talk to your customers is just the way you should write on your blog. And often I find something that gives people a real peace of mind is if maybe they find themselves, a relatively cost-effective proofreader, so that, yes, they write something, they get it proofread, and then at least they know it's grammatically correct, there's no typos, and therefore they can put it out into the universe. Because that's one of the most fearful things. I'm going to make a mistake, I'm going to look stupid. But you really just have to kind of push it out there, give it a go, and you'll be amazed how people respond to them. And the more honest and the more yourself you are, the better engagement I find. It's my blog posts that are a bit more personal that actually get the most cut through. So just have to be brave. Like it is running a business, it can be very scary, but you just have to put yourself out there and be confident. And what's the worst that can happen,
Exactly. And I think as well, and I always say, the first 5 are not going to be the easiest thing that you've ever done. But once you get past that point and you get a rhythm, so I say to studios, at least, once a week, it's great to put something on your latest news, because the thing is that, prospective students and mothers and parents are coming to your website, and we all know those websites where we go to their blog or latest news, and their latest news was from 2 years ago.
Yeah, and that's unnerving, and you think, well, maybe this place isn't open anymore, maybe they're not really functioning, So and as I said, it doesn't have to be even a written blog post. Maybe you could find an awesome, fun couple of 5 different fun videos on YouTube that are really fun and about dancing. Just write a little intro and then put those on your site. If you really are struggling, think outside the box and maybe don't write something massive, just find some fun content to share.
Excellent advice. So, we touched on headlines, and they're a really important element of an online article or a blog. What are some tips you can give us about creating a compelling headline that is search engine friendly? And are there any tools that you can recommend for our audience to use around headlines?
It's funny that you should say that, because I've just written a blog post called Writing Headlines, the Ultimate Guide. And in there I kind of explained that, headlines are based on 3 core things. The goal, what do you want people to do with this post? Is it something that you want to improve your ranking or get new customers? And again, coming back to your audience, who is the article for? Is it going to be for mums who are reading it on Facebook, or busy business people who are maybe going to quickly check it on their iPhone? And then where are you going to share it? You're going to share it on Twitter or on Facebook or Google. So, think about those things. But really, there's only 6 basic ways to structure a headline. Statement, and I always use this terrible example, but making bathing piglets easier. Question, how can I make bathing piglets easier? How to make bathing piglets easier? Number is hugely popular, so 30 ways to make bathing piglets easier. Or addressing the reader, why you need to make bathing piglets easier. So in my little blog post that on my site, I've given some samples, but also there's a few super cool tools out there that you can use that will do all the hard work for you. One of them is called the Portent Content Idea Generator, and I'll send you the link after this. Fantastic. And you literally put the word in, maybe dance classes, and it will come up with hundreds of funny, cool, silly, clever titles for you. And there's another fun one called Tweak Your Biz Title Generator, which again provides, maybe 200 different headline ideas. And while the headlines themselves might not be exactly what you end up with, they're great for coming up with ideas and inspiring you. Because once you've got the headline down, the article comes out super easy.
I agree. Completely agree. I always say, when we're looking at doing articles and blogs, I always say go away and think of 10 articles before 10 headlines, before you even write anything. Yeah. Because it gets the creative juices flowing, it gets you excited.
Yeah, exactly. And again, look at other websites. There's nothing wrong with borrowing ideas, and making them your own. So look at other websites, see which posts were super popular on their site, and see if you can write something and put your own spin on it,
Yeah, it's excellent. Great.
Yeah.
And so, look, we've heard a lot of things about social media and SEO. Can social media help our SEO? So can you talk a little bit about this and how we can be more effective with the copy in our social media posts?
Well, look, there's a big debate with search engine optimization people about whether social media directly impacts SEO. So what I mean by that is, does a post that's shared 50 times on Facebook have more of a chance of ranking than a post that isn't? And most people agree that social media doesn't actually impact SEO. It just so happens that posts that are liked more on Facebook tend to do better, because the more that people share your post or like your post, the more likely they are to link to it, and that influences SEO. So it's a mix between causation and correlation and all that. But look, of course, with the audiences for this kind of business, they're all on social media. So it really is about identifying where your customers live and going to there rather than trying to make them come back to you. So, when you write a blog post, I often suggest that people should try and write at the same time as they're writing it 5 or 6 different social media updates at the same time, so that they can get maximum juice out of a single blog post.
Yeah.
And with social media, there's kind of some rule that, you should post 80% about what you do and 20% about yourself. So you're not constantly ramming your classes and your offers down people's throats. You're giving them entertaining content. But the truth of it is, you could tweet and Facebook for a month and it probably wouldn't have any influence on your ranking directly. One of the social media sites that does have a big impact is Google+. And it's one of the ones that people go, oh God, not another social network, I can't be bothered. But I've noticed powerful influence that Google Plus can have on sites. So although you may think, well, look, my audience isn't on there, I don't think they'll be there, it's worth getting on there now, because your audience probably will be on there sooner or later. 5 years ago, people were saying to me, why do I need to be on Facebook? Nobody's on Facebook. And now look at Facebook, So
exactly.
I'd suggest it's worth having a profile on, the 3 main sites, Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. And if you have lots of nice photos, which I suspect they have, putting them on Pinterest and Instagram. Is it going to massively influence your SEO rankings? No, but it is going to win you new customers, get more engagement, get your brand out there.
Yeah, 100%. With all the dance studio owners that we're working with and have worked with, Facebook is definitely currently the primary platform, in social media where they're playing, and secondary is Instagram. A lot of teenage girls are on Instagram.
Yeah, and a lot of mums are on Pinterest, and mums are the ones who are going to book the classes. So, and really, if you install, a social plugin on your site, like with WordPress, there are lots of different ones. All it is a case of is, once you've posted your blog, just clicking the buttons and sharing it on Pinterest, Twitter. It doesn't have to be a great big ordeal, but it's just something that you need to think about regularly and make a commitment to trying to update your social media sites, or ideally every day, but whenever you can,
Yeah. I say every day too.
Yeah.
So what's the one thing, as we wrap up, you can suggest our studio owners can take action on today in regards to SEO that they'll see a difference? Now, I always like to say see a difference tomorrow, but we know it doesn't happen overnight, but it will happen. So maybe over the next 7 days, what would you say there's one key thing that they should be doing right now so that it makes an impact on their SEO?
If they did one thing, I'd suggest that they go and register for a Google Plus account and set up their Google Authorship. It's relatively easy to do. You can Google Authorship setup and you'll be given step-by-step instructions. And that will link your site and anything you do on the internet to your Google Plus profile. And it will also do that lovely little thing of putting a little picture of you next to your website results in the Google search results. So, I would say that's one thing. It might take 2 hours to do, but I think that would have the quickest impact.
Fantastic. Great advice. Look, thanks so much for your time today, Kate. It's been really great to talk to you. Some really awesome advice that people can take back and implement into their studios. If people want to find out more about you, where should they head to?
My web address is www.katetoon, Toon, copywriter.com.au, but I'm all over Facebook, Twitter, Google. So just type in Kate Toon. There aren't many Kate Toons in the world, and you'll find me one way or another.
Yep, perfect. And we'll put all your links to all of your cool gadgets and tools that you've told us about in the show notes. Look forward to chatting to you again really soon. Thanks again for your time, Kate.
Thanks ever so much, and good luck, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Studio Success Formula podcast. To take your studio to the next level and beyond, head to studiosuccessformula.com.